You ever get that feeling something big is about to break wide open? Like a secret that's been buried so deep it starts to rot from the inside, and you can smell the truth before anyone even says it out loud? That's where we are right now. Two men who were inside hip-hop's most dangerous moments are finally stepping into the light, and they're naming names. Suge Knight and Gene Deal aren't whispering anymore. They're not throwing vague shots or hiding behind coded language. They're straight up saying it. Diddy didn't just survive the chaos of the 1990s, he may have orchestrated it. And even worse, they say he might have had help from the inside, federal help. Gene Deal, who once stood behind Diddy as his personal bodyguard, claims his former boss has been a federal informant for years, feeding intel, avoiding consequences, keeping the spotlight while others disappeared, literally and legally. Suge Knight, the infamous co-founder of Death Row Records and the man many still see as the villain of 90s hip-hop, is backing him up from behind prison walls. And if what they're saying is even half true, this could unravel everything we thought we knew about Biggie, Tupac, and the entire East Coast-West Coast war. This isn't just about music beef. It's about murder, manipulation, and a power game that may have gone all the way to the top of the federal system. The question isn't whether Diddy had secrets, it's how many people he took down to keep them hidden. Before we get too deep, you need to know who Gene Deal is and why his words are hitting like a bomb in the hip-hop world. Gene wasn't some distant associate. He wasn't a fan, a blogger, or a YouTube conspiracy theorist. He was in the room. For years, Gene Deal was P. Diddy's personal bodyguard, one of the few people trusted to be close when things got dangerous, and things were always dangerous. He was there during the peak of Bad Boy Records, during the time when Biggie was alive, when the streets were hot, and when the tension with Death Row wasn't just music, it was war. Gene was on the front lines of it all. He saw the meetings, the paranoia, the late-night phone calls. He watched the moves that were made to protect Diddy's image, and the moves that left other people, like Biggie, vulnerable. After years of silence, Gene started speaking out. And the more he talks, the harder it is to ignore the patterns. He's not dropping wild accusations without backing them up. Gene has receipts. He knows dates. He knows who was in the car, who made the call, who walked out of the building when others didn't. And he says the story we've all been sold for the past 25 years, it's been edited, polished, and cleaned up to protect one man, Sean Diddy Combs. So why speak now? Why break the code of silence? Because, according to Gene, he's tired of watching people die while others cash checks and smile for the cameras. And what he's revealing isn't just about betrayal, it's about a system that let it all happen. Now, it's one thing for Gene Deal to speak out. He's been doing it for years, slowly peeling back the layers. But when Suge Knight, yes, that Suge Knight, backs up your claims from a prison cell, people stop scrolling and start listening. Suge's no angel. He's the boogeyman of 90s hip-hop, the man who allegedly held Vanilla Ice over a balcony, the same Suge who went head-to-head with Bad Boy, who walked into the Source Awards and lit the match that set the East Coast-West Coast feud on fire. He's also the man who was in the car when Tupac was shot in Las Vegas. He survived the hit. Tupac didn't. So, when Suge says he believes Diddy's been playing both sides for decades, smiling on red carpets while moving like a fed behind closed doors, it hits differently. This isn't some random beef. Suge's been waiting to say this. And from his cell, he's calling it for what he thinks it is, a setup. According to Suge, the story everyone heard about the night Tupac died is only half true. He's implying there were higher powers involved, people who knew when to step back, when to cover up, and who to let fall. And when he hears Gene Deal's claims that Diddy has been an informant since the 90s, Suge doesn't flinch. He says it makes sense. Too much sense. Because how else, he asks, does a man connected to that much chaos walk away untouched, decade after decade? Suge might be locked up, but his voice, it's still loud. And now it's echoing Gene's message, adding more weight to a story that's already cracking at the seams. This is where things get nuclear. Gene Deal isn't just saying Diddy was shady. He's saying Diddy was a federal informant, feeding the FBI intel for years while keeping his hands clean. Let that sink in. We're talking about one of the most powerful men in music, someone who built an empire off the street image, off loyalty, off pain and hustle, secretly flipping info to the feds behind the scenes. That's not just betrayal, that's chess on a whole different board. Gene claims Diddy had help staying out of trouble, that all the brushes with danger, the violence that surrounded him, the lawsuits, the criminal cases, somehow it always slid off him. Rappers fell, crews got indicted, even moguls like Suge got locked up. But Diddy? He came out spotless every single time. It's not luck, Gene says. It's protection. And now people are going back and looking again. All those moments that fell off, the cases that disappeared, the stories that got buried. Why didn't Diddy ever take a real hit? Why were people around him always catching heat while he kept climbing? This isn't just about image anymore. If the informant claims are true, it rewrites everything. It means that while Biggie was trusting him, while Tupac was accusing him, while fans were fighting over East versus West, Diddy may have been working a whole different angle. Gene says the feds didn't just watch hip-hop, they used it. And if Diddy was a part of that, then the streets were never just streets. They were a stage, and he was playing both the role of the star and the insider.
Gene Deal doesn't just talk about Diddy's alleged role as an informant, he goes deeper. He starts connecting dots that were hidden in plain sight. Events that seemed unrelated at the time now start to form a picture, one that looks more like a web than a straight timeline. He brings up the club shooting in 1999, where Diddy, Jennifer Lopez, and Shine were all present. Shine went down, did time, but Diddy? He walked. Clean. His lawyers spun it as a misunderstanding, but Gene says the story was never that simple, that there were people behind the scenes, people with badges, making sure Diddy's name got pulled out of the mess before it stuck. Then there's the mysterious deaths. Not just Tupac, not just Biggie, but other figures in the industry, associates, bodyguards, drivers, people who knew too much or were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some of them wound up silenced, others just vanished from the scene altogether. Gene says the industry became a battlefield, not just for money, but for survival. And Diddy, always just on the edge of danger, somehow managed to stay above the bodies. People started asking, how does one man stay that clean in a dirty game? Gene's answer is, he never played by the same rules, because he had people on the inside watching his back. And Suge Knight agrees. He says he saw it happening, people in power, acting untouchable, making moves no one else could make. Suge doesn't call it luck, he calls it protection, pure and simple. And Gene's theory fits that narrative like a glove. If this is true, then the violence of 90s hip-hop wasn't just chaos. It was orchestrated, managed, and the people we thought were victims or villains, some of them might have just been pawns.
For decades, the East Coast-West Coast beef has been seen as a tragic battle for dominance in hip-hop. Tupac versus Biggie, Death Row versus Bad Boy, LA versus New York. But Gene Deal and now Suge Knight are suggesting it wasn't just a clash of egos and coasts, it was a distraction, a smokescreen. According to them, the feud may have been used to cover up deeper agendas. While fans argued over lyrics and territories, bigger things were happening behind the scenes. Money was moving, power was shifting, deals were being made with people far outside the rap game, people who saw opportunity in the chaos. Gene says it wasn't just about pride, it was about control. Control of music, control of narrative, and more importantly, control of people. Divide the culture, keep the focus on beef, and no one looks behind the curtain. And behind that curtain, Diddy was rising. He wasn't just surviving the storm, he was thriving in it. Biggie's death left a vacuum, and Bad Boy filled it fast. Suge Knight got locked up. Death Row started crumbling. The West lost momentum. The East? It consolidated. Gene believes this was no coincidence. He points out how media fed the feud, how labels profited from the tension, and how violence was normalized to the point where people stopped asking questions when another rapper got gunned down. It became part of the narrative, the cost of the game. But Gene and Suge are trying to blow that narrative wide open. They say the beef didn't just kill two legends, it helped hide the real story, that while everyone was watching the front lines, the real war was happening in boardrooms, backrooms, and federal offices. If that's true, then the East versus West war wasn't just tragic, it was strategic. And the people we thought were in charge may have just been following orders. As the bodies dropped and the chaos settled, one thing became unmistakably clear. Diddy wasn't just surviving, he was climbing. Bad Boy Records was booming. Sean John was everywhere. Ciroc was turning him into a mogul. While others were caught in legal battles, funerals, or prison sentences, Diddy was hosting parties, signing deals, and taking over the mainstream. And yet, no one was asking the hard questions. Gene Deal, who once worked security for Diddy, says that silence was no accident. According to him, Diddy had a way of making inconvenient people disappear from his orbit, sometimes literally, other times just off the record. He wasn't loud about it. He didn't need to be, because he had power, influence, and most of all, leverage. Gene claims Diddy didn't just have industry contacts. He had connections to the kind of people who could shut down stories, squash investigations, and redirect narratives before they made headlines. People who could make problems evaporate. That kind of pull doesn't come from talent alone. As his wealth grew, so did the myth. He was the guy who beat the system, the rags to riches story with a soundtrack and a champagne bottle in hand. But Gene and Suge say that story left out the bodies in the background, the whispers in back rooms, and the scared looks exchanged by people who used to be close to him. They say people stopped talking not because they didn't know the truth, but because they were afraid of it. And yet, despite the growing pile of accusations, Diddy seemed untouched. Every controversy rolled off him like water. Every lawsuit disappeared quietly. Every allegation faded into background noise. Gene says that's not luck. That's insulation. But now, with Suge Knight speaking from behind bars and Gene Deal pulling receipts in interviews, that silence, it's cracking. And the higher someone climbs in silence, the harder the fall might be when people start listening.